One quiet decision, and everything changed. Inside the halls of power, loyalty was put to the test, and across America, hearts awoke. What came next wasn't chaos, it was clarity. If you've ever wondered how one moment can define a leader and how truth finds its voice, even in silence, press play to dive in. At other times, the most deafening sound in a man's life is the silence after one decision. He sat by himself among all he had constructed and all that he had lost. Outside, a nation was awakening, not in anger, but in something much deeper, a quiet, unyielding hope. What occurs when loyalty is put to the ultimate test? When one cry goes against the tide and another louder cry responds? And in that room between pride and regret, who are we? This is the tale of how one man's choice disentangled trust and how another stood tall, not for power, but for the people. Let me tell you what happened. Senator Tom Tillis likely assumed he could sneeze away from President Trump's historic bill without a whole lot of controversy. But the instant word came out that he had voted against it, Trump didn't hesitate to clap back, happily and unequivocally. What ensued was a political furor Tillis never anticipated. It all started about 6:00 p.m. in Washington, D.C. The Senate chamber was alive with silent tension. Cameras snapped, news alerts flashed across the nation. President Donald J. Trump, America's 47th president, had everything hanging on this moment. His signature big, beautiful bill was finally in vote. It wasn't just any bill. It promised significant changes to jobs, tax reductions for working families, and improved veterans funding. It was the center of Trump's ambitious vision for a freer, cleaner, stronger America. Then came the shock. On live television, Republican Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina voted no. Gasps erupted in the room. Reporters sprang from their seats. The stunned silence that followed struck hard. This was no just no, it was betrayal by someone within Trump's own party. But Tillis wasn't finished. He leaned into the mic and declared, "The president is experiencing a mental decline. We cannot afford chaos pretending to be leadership." That statement stung like a slap. News apps burst. Talk shows went haywire. Twitter went crazy. But Trump, he remained quiet. All evening long, as headlines blared and commentators speculated, he didn't say a word. In the West Wing, Trump sat quietly, watching the news roll in. His advisors waited, tense. But he showed no anger, just calm, focused eyes. Then his youngest son, Barron, walked in, holding his phone. "Dad," he said gently, "Tillis thinks you're finished." Trump stood up, adjusted his suit, and replied with a cool edge, "He thinks I'm done? Good. Let's show him what done really looks like." He headed straight to the Roosevelt Room, where his team was waiting. "Draft the post," he said. "We go public tonight. I'm done playing nice." Minutes later, Trump's social media exploded with a sharp, no-holds-barred post. Senator Tom Tillis just voted no on the big, beautiful bill to help the American people. He says I'm in mental decline? He should check his own record and his bank account. It hit like a thunderclap. Over 10 million views in the first hour. The hashtag #TillisTraitor trended instantly. Even fellow Republicans whispered, "What did Trump mean about that bank account?" But that wasn't the real bombshell. At 11:30 p.m., Trump went live. Not from the press briefing room, but straight from his phone. "I stayed silent out of respect for the process," he began, looking directly into the camera. "But tonight I'm telling the American people the truth." Then came the gut punch. Senator Tillis accepted $1.2 million from foreign-connected lobbyists to kill this bill. "We have the documents. We have the phone calls. He was purchased, and he sold you out." TV monitors froze. They huddled in. Families, veterans, working people, many crying. Trump wasn't merely suggesting Tillis voted against him. He was suggesting Tillis voted against them. Your job, your family, your child's future. And then came the coup de grace. "I'll be meeting with primary challengers in North Carolina. We're going to find someone who will truly serve the people." It was political devastation, a nuke, and everyone felt the shockwave. Back in his D.C. apartment, Tillis watched it all unfold, stunned. His hands shook. His phone lit up with missed calls. His wife sat frozen, staring at the screen. And this was just the beginning. Tillis did not sleep that night. He paced in bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, as the online world went mad. His betrayal was no longer politics. It was personal to millions now. His email inbox overflowed. "Traitor, sellout. You betrayed America." By 8:00 a.m., panic had set in on Capitol Hill. Republican aides scrambled to do damage control. Phones were ringing around the clock. Donors withdrew. Pale-faced aide approached Tillis with fear in her voice. "Sir, even Fox News is playing Trump's video over and over again. They're taking his side." Tillis smiled grimly. But inside, he was shocked. He never thought this kind of reaction would come. He didn't think it would be this quick, this intense, Rupto. Meanwhile, over in town, Trump strolled peacefully through the Rosary Garden with Barron. He expected betrayal to be muted, Trump declared, but the people heard it loud. And then came yet another twist. That same morning, Trump's big, beautiful bill reappeared on the Senate floor for a surprise revote. During the night, Trump's supporters had switched two undecided Republican senators. The clerk read out the tally, yay 51, nay 49. The room went still, then exploded. The bill had passed. Tillis sat in stunned silence. His no vote had not derailed it. If anything, it further energized Trump's base. Other senators looked away. Some moved their chairs back. Reporters engulfed him. Senator, how does it feel to know the bill passed despite you? Do you regret going against your own party? He muttered something about principles and pushed his way through the throng. But America was not going for it. Hashtags flooded in on social media. Hashtag Trump wins again. Tillis exposed. Never betray. And before the party could even get started, Trump dropped one last post that would destroy Tillis' political career. President Trump to meet with primary challenger contenders against Senator Tom Tillis, seeking someone who will represent well the great people of North Carolina and the United States. Millions were exposed. Millions posted it. News anchors read it aloud. In his car, Tillis stared at the post. His hands shook. His driver peeked nervously in the mirror. Then the phone rang. Tom, we're done funding you. Tom, our voters are livid. Tom, we're pulling party support. It was over. The betrayal, the backlash, the truth Trump had exposed, it all came crashing down. He had crossed the wrong man, and now the whole world was watching him fall. By morning, he could not keep it a secret. Protesters showed up at his Raleigh office, holding signs and banners. Trump stood for us. You stood for yourself. Primary him. In the Capitol, all was different. Those who used to smile at Tillis when he passed now nodded warily. Even the janitor, normally cordial, grunted a chilly greeting as he passed. But the one that hit him hardest was a quiet phone call. Congressman Dan Bishop, a fellow Republican from North Carolina, spoke quietly but earnestly. Tom, he said, you've made an enormous mistake. He's going to get you. You disrespected the president. You mocked him on live TV, and now he's opened the gates. Tillis went through the motions of laughing. It'll blow over, he said. But he knew in his heart Dan was telling the truth. That night, President Trump appeared on national TV, steady, smiling, in charge. The big, beautiful bill is now law, Trump declared with calm assurance, and betrayal has consequences. In America, all over the country, people applauded, cheered, celebrated, but Tillis alone sat in the darkness, staring at the face of the man he had misjudged. Then, at around 9:15 p.m., came another shockwave. A breaking news alert flashed across Washington's screens. Breaking, whistleblower comes forward with evidence. Senator Tom Tillis took bribes from foreign lobbyists to vote down President Trump's bill. The nation came to a standstill. On national television, there appeared a former staffer. Her voice shook, but she was resolute. I was there when he took the money, she stated, eyes brimming with tears. It was not ever about the bill. It was not ever about the individuals. He was paid to say no. Trump repeated the video near immediately after, tweeting, told you the swamp runs deep, but we're cleaning house. Americans were devastated, truly devastated. They cried watching the video. Veterans clutched their flags in anger. Mothers wept. Truckers drove off the highway just to yell at their radios. He sold us out. And Tillis? He locked his door or shut off all his lights and looked at his face in the mirror. It wasn't Trump tormenting him. It was the truth. Just when he thought it couldn't get worse, it did. At the stroke of midnight, yet another Trump post came crashing down like a bolt of lightning. To the people of North Carolina, I love you. I will personally be meeting with every challenger who wishes to run against Tom Tillis. We need fighters, not sellouts. He closed it with one ruthless word: foe. The media went ballistic. North Carolina conservative voters began mobilizing overnight. Online fundraisers appeared. Endorsements rolled in, all for challengers backed by Trump. It was over, and Tillis knew it. His wife descended the stairs, eyes swollen from crying. You should have just remained faithful, she said quietly. Just once, Ishamon. Tillis had no response. He turned to her and whispered, I didn't think he'd strike back this quickly. But of course, Trump waited not. He stood up for truth. He battled corruption, and he never tolerated betrayal. Tillis had ridiculed the lion, and now he stood face to face with the roar. Morning broke over Washington, but for Senator Tillis, it was like midnight never ended. The calls ceased. Not because everything was all right, but because everyone had abandoned him. His communications director resigned by text message. His campaign advisor disappeared. No response. One of his best Senate friends replied in only 3 words, "Can't save you." Tillis stood at the window gazing down at throngs of people packing the streets. They weren't protesters this time. They were supporters, cheering for Trump, holding up signs. Trump stood firm. Tillis betrayed us. The people are watching. Even right-wing radio hosts turned on him. "You don't betray your own president," one host snarled on the air. "Especially not Donald J. Trump." Tillis pushed back. He opened Twitter and put up a brief defense, but each and every response dug him in deeper. Old tweets that lauded Trump, footage of him assuring that he would back the bill. His double standard was now going viral. He turned off his phone. That's when it struck him. He wasn't getting canceled. He had canceled himself. Back at the White House, President Trump sat quietly, flipping through a stack of briefing papers. The big, beautiful bill had officially passed. Across the country, people were celebrating. But Trump wasn't focused on the win. He was thinking about the betrayal. Melania stepped into the room and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "You handled it with strength," she said softly. Trump nodded slightly. "The people had to see I wouldn't fold." Just then, Barron entered the room with a newly written post for his dad's social media. The message was brief, but potent. "Betrayal by those who wear your colors is the worst kind, but we don't break. We build stronger. America first." Trump read it aloud, signed it with one firm word, posted. The staff applauded. Even Secret Service agents standing nearby cracked a smile. This was not merely a political win. It was a call for truth, loyalty, and the people of America. Back in North Carolina, the last dam broke. Local media released bombshell stories. Senator Tom Tillis's approval rating had sunk to an abysmal 9% amongst Republican voters. County leaders started withdrawing their endorsements. Churches that used to invite him were now canceling his visits. It all was falling apart. At a 11th hour town hall, damage control, the stage was entered by Tillis. The audience did not welcome him with cheers. They booed. "You lied to us," a mother yelled. "Food, jobs, and dignity, you voted no on." And then, one slow-standing elderly veteran, "President Trump gave us hope," he declared. "You gave us betrayal." Tillis attempted to speak, but his voice broke. I did what I believed was right." "No," a teenager shouted. "You did what your donors paid you to do." The crowd erupted once more. There was no turning back from this. That evening, by himself in his office, Tillis sat in silence. He opened his inbox, bracing himself for what he'd see. One message leaped out at him. "Should have stood with Trump. Now it's too late." He shut his laptop slowly. His hands shook. His chest tightened. And in that dark, still moment, the truth at last caught up. He didn't only lose a vote, he lost the people. Even as America was celebrating the big, beautiful bill's win, President Trump wasn't enjoying the standing ovations. He sat in the White House, thumbing through briefing sheets, his mind elsewhere, not on the victory, but the betrayal. Melania entered the room, putting her hand on his shoulder. "You stood up to it with courage," she spoke softly. Trump nodded slightly. "The people had to know I wouldn't capitulate." Barron entered just then, carrying a new social media post he had written for his father. It said, "Betrayal by the ones who wear your colors is the worst, but we don't break. We get stronger. America first." Trump read it aloud, then signed it in one big word, "Posted." The staff applauded. Even usually dour Secret Service agents smiled. This was no longer just a political triumph. It had evolved into something more. A stand for truth, a stand for loyalty, a stand for the people. But deep in North Carolina, it was all unraveling for Senator Tom Tillis. Local media had just dropped the final bombshell. His approval rating among Republicans had fallen to a paltry 9%. County officials were pulling their endorsement. Churches that had once embraced him now canceled his appearances. Even his allies were abandoning ship. At a town hall designed to let him save face, Tillis took the stage and faced a wall of boos. "You lied to us," a mother screamed from the front row. "You voted no on food, jobs, and dignity." Then, a slow-moving elderly veteran rose to his feet and spoke with quiet anguish. "President Trump gave us hope. You gave us betrayal." Tillis attempted to respond, but his voice cracked. I did what I believed was right." "No," a teenager yelled. "You did what your donors paid you to do." The room erupted again. There was no excuse good enough for what he had done. That night, alone in his office, Tillis sat and opened his inbox. One message stood out. "Should have stood with Trump. Now it's too late." He closed the laptop quietly. His hands shook, his chest constricted. In the quiet, it struck him forcibly. This wasn't about a bill. He hadn't lost a vote. He'd lost the people. And while Tillis sat quietly, his world unraveling, Something great was growing in the hearts of everyday Americans. Trump's message was coursing through North Carolina like dry grass in a lightning storm. In a tiny town outside Asheville, Marine veteran David McCullen, 36, sat in a living room and listened to Trump's video in tears, but tears of fire, not sadness. David had lost a brother to suicide when the VA had refused him care. The big, beautiful bill would have made the difference. But Tillis had voted against it. David turned to his wife. "It's time." She nodded tearfully. "You'd be doing it for him." That night, David posted a video. "Senator Tillis turned his back on our veterans, our workers, and our future. I'm not a politician. I'm a patriot, and I'm answering President Trump's call." Within 1 hour, it hit 2.3 million views. Trump reposted it himself, writing, "Now that's a fighter." People wept reading David's story. Donations poured in. News anchors began calling him the People's Marine. Just like that, Tom Tillis wasn't battling regret anymore. He was battling a movement. By morning, a crayon letter rattled the whole nation. It was from an 8-year-old girl in North Carolina named Emily. Her dad, a truck driver, had been struggling since the pandemic. The big, beautiful bill would have provided him relief, a break, a second chance. But he never received it because Tillis had voted no. Emily's letter was plain, but devastating. "Dear Mr. Trump, thank you for standing up for my daddy. He works hard and he cries a lot. Please don't stop helping us. Please don't let Mr. Tillis hurt other families." President Trump read it aloud at a press conference, pausing several times, clearly restraining emotion. Even journalists who usually battled him remained quiet. Then he said quietly, "This is who we fight for. Not the lobbyists, not the elites. Emily's daddy and every daddy and mommy across this country." Across America, tears were shed. Social media was full of love and support. Tillis's name was drowned in waves of anger and sorrow. And Trump's? His name rode higher than ever. By noon, Tillis's normally quiet house was not. His sister appeared on his doorstep with tears in her eyes. His brother called from the coast. Even his daughter, who was in college and hardly ever talked about politics, had something to say. "Dad, you shattered people's hearts," she whispered, voice trembling. "People like Emily, like that Marine, like us." Tillis looked at her, his own eyes glazed. "I thought I was doing the right thing." She shook her head. "No, Dad, you did what was easy." Then his wife finally broke her silence. "You let ambition devour your soul," she whispered, and Trump revealed it. "Not to embarrass you, to remind you who you were meant to be." Tillis fell onto the couch, his face in his hands, and for the first time since all this started, he wept. Not because he'd lost, but because somewhere deep inside he knew he'd done it to himself. Throughout North Carolina, the voices of Americans weren't just on the internet anymore. They were marching down the streets. In Charlotte, Raleigh, Wilmington, thousands stood in quiet crowds carrying signs. "Thank you, President Trump. We believe in the big, beautiful bill. Tillis, we remember." Parents brought their children. Veterans waved flags. Farmers drove tractors through the town square. News helicopters buzzed overhead as all the major networks broadcasted. And in one crowd standing in the center, little Emily, the 8-year-old who had penned the letter to Trump, beamed with pride on her father's shoulders. That picture went viral. Millions posted it with the caption, "She stood by Trump when Tillis did not." President Trump sat in the White House and watched it all go down from the screen, quiet, emotional. "That's not a rally," he whispered to Melania. "That's America waking up." And it really was. Folks in all 50 states weren't just backing a bill. They were rallying behind a president who stood firm and fought for them. From his window in his apartment, Senator Tillis observed the events on television. Then he noticed one poster that left him weak in the knees. "Tillis, you will never be trusted again." That night, in a moment of desperation, Tillis consented to a live interview, much to the horror of his staff, who begged him not to. He sat under harsh studio lights, tie undone, eyes sunken from missed nights of sleep. The host did not break in. "Senator, was it money that you accepted to vote against President Trump's bill?" Tillis faltered. I voted on principle," the host interrupted. "Did you or did you not take lobbying money?" "There are records, sir." Tillis's lips shook. I required funding for re-election." The screen doubled as the host spoke to the audience. "You heard it here. Tom Tillis confesses to betraying the bill and the people." Clips spread on the internet within minutes. Even school children started recreating the moment in parody clips. One featured a boy uttering, "I needed financing," prior to crying lip-syncing into a heap of Monopoly money. Tillis had become a meme, a joke, a symbol for selfishness. By the end of that evening, his approval rating fell again, down to a mere 2%. And President Trump, He simply shared a peaceful, powerful video of waving American flags with one message: we rise by doing what's right. At 10 a.m. on the dot the following morning, to zero press and warning, President Trump touched down in North Carolina. No cameras, no speeches, just Trump, Barron, and two black SUVs. He strode directly into a tiny community center where families and vets had assembled, including Emily and her dad. Everybody stood there motionless when they spotted him. Trump hugged the little girl, then turned and shook her father's hand. "You're what this country is about," he said, voice catching slightly, "and I'll never stop fighting for you." Word spread like wildfire. By noon, over 50,000 people were outside the building. Trump stepped out onto the front porch, looked over the massive crowd, and spoke just one sentence. No microphone, no notes. "You trusted me, and I'll never forget it." People wept, men, women, even reporters. Tears flowed freely. In Washington, Senator Tillis sat hunched in his chair, scrolling through the video. He saw the love in those mobs, their passion, their devotion, and whispered through shaking lips, "I betrayed the wrong man." Senator Tillis was a shadow of his former self in his home state by this time. His name used to hold significance. Now it evoked disappointment. That night, in a last-ditch attempt at redemption, he made a video. No studio, no lighting, just a phone on a tripod and a man who has lost everything. His voice was soft, vulnerable. "To the citizens of North Carolina, I let you down. I let the president down. I let my oath down. I allowed personal gain to cloud my judgment, and I apologize." He stopped, looking directly into the camera. President Trump was correct. The big, beautiful bill wasn't about politics. It was about people, real people, like Emily, like veterans, like struggling families. His eyes welled up with tears. "I betrayed the wrong man, and I may never recover from it. But please don't let my mistakes stop you from believing in America." He concluded the video with a whisper. "President Trump, if you're watching, I was wrong, and I hope someday you'll forgive me." The video went viral, but not out of sympathy. Comments flooded in. "Too little. Too late." And Trump, he didn't respond. He didn't repost. He said nothing. Because sometimes silence is all the answer that matters. That evening, President Trump appeared in a surprise national address, live from the Oval Office. He had no tie, only a dark suit, the American flag clipped to his lapel, and a somber expression. "I didn't come here tonight to speak of politics," he started. "I came here to discuss pain and healing." He spoke of the bill, what it represented, how it would rebuild communities, support hospitals, bring veterans out of hopelessness, and provide struggling families like Emily's a lifeline. "This bill isn't perfect, but it's real, and it's ours. And every person who believed in it believed in a better America." Then he addressed the camera directly. "To those who doubted me, ridiculed me, even betrayed me, you didn't hurt me. You hurt the people." He paused, allowing his words to hang. "But we'll heal, because that's what we do." Living rooms across the country fell silent. Fathers wept. Grandmothers whispered prayers. Children clung to their parents' sides. "I will keep fighting," Trump went on. "Not for applause, but for every forgotten man and woman. For every small voice that deserves to be heard." And as his broadcast faded into quiet victory, Tillis sat alone, seeing through watery eyes. He had once fantasized about being president. Now, he couldn't even go out the door. The calls ended. The endorsements disappeared. He had lost it all. Tillis's own party gave him the coup de grace. The North Carolina Republican Committee issued a statement that rang throughout Capitol Hill. "We stand with President Donald J. Trump and support his search for a new candidate who will truly serve the people of North Carolina." The words were plain. It wasn't over in months, not next year. It was over now. Tillis slumped in his chair amidst silence. The office that had once throbbed with energy and dreams now seemed cold, vacant. For the first time in his whole political career, he didn't have anything left to stand up for. No legacy, no friends, only guilt, and the ringing of America opting for the truth rather than betrayal. Morning dawned like a warm blanket across the land. The dust of betrayal had fallen, but from it, something infinitely greater was emerging: hope. In every corner of the country, ordinary Americans, construction workers, nurses, factory workers, veterans, awakened with a sense they hadn't experienced in a while. Relief. The big, beautiful bill had already gotten to work. In Ohio, a veteran at last got a hospital appointment he'd been waiting for decades. In Alabama, a mother picked up her phone and heard, "Your housing assistance has been approved." And in North Carolina, an unmarried dad opened his mail and came to a standstill. A letter from the government, federal assistance approved under Section 4, Trump Recovery Fund. He gripped the paper in trembling hands. Tears streamed down his face. His little girl gazed up at him from beside him. "Daddy, does this mean we're okay now?" He nodded, voice cracking, because President Trump didn't give up on us, and the people understood. This was never just about a bill. It was about a promise kept. Meanwhile, Tom Tillis sat in his darkened home, watching the world move forward on TV. No applause, no cameras, no interviews, just the hum of what could have been. At precisely 8:00 a.m., President Trump made his last post. No photo, no motto. Plain words, simple and powerful. "I didn't fight back for me. I fought for you, for every family, for every worker, for every forgotten soul in this country, and we're just getting started. America first, always." The post broke records. 30 million views in only an hour. Stars reposted it. Former critics applauded it. Kids all over the country chalked up the words on their front yards. And in North Carolina, Emily noticed the post on her iPad. She smiled quietly. He kept his word, she told her dad, barely above a whisper. In a small studio down the street, Marine veteran David McCullen, the guy Trump had supported, gazed directly into a camera. "Senator Tillis left us behind. President Trump never did." And America roared back, not in rage, but in thanks. Trump didn't rub it in. He didn't brag. He just smiled, because the people had prevailed. Tom Tillis's story was more than a headline. It became a lesson, a warning etched in the heart of every American. Never betray the people. Never betray your president. Never betray the truth. His betrayal was fleeting, but the loyalty of millions? That would endure forever. Tillis's name went into whispers told only in cautionary tales, but Donald J. Trump's name? It told from rooftops, classrooms, farms, churches, in veterans' halls. Because when others fled, he stood firm. He laid bare the decay. He picked the people. And by doing so, he made America believe again.